between universes, quantum bridges, and the first true alien encounters. Dr. Alicia Nagendra stared at her computer screen, her eyes darting across an array of complex astrophysical data. Streams of numbers marched vertically, each representing measurements of cosmic microwave background fluctuations, gravitational wave signatures, and quantum-scale anomalies captured by the advanced array of satellites orbiting Earth. It was a routine check, something her colleagues at the Rutherford Feynman Institute did every few days. But today, something was off. In the midst of the routine data, a baffling spike appeared, barely lasting a fraction of a second, in multiple sensors at once. The amplitude made no sense. It was far too large for background noise, but too short-lived to be any known cosmic event like a supernova or a gamma-ray burst. She triple-checked for hardware errors. Everything was nominal. She called across the lab to her postdoc, Simon McElroy, a brilliant young physicist whose specialty was analyzing quantum gravitational anomalies. "Simon, do you see what I'm seeing?" she asked, leaning back from her computer. In the hush of the laboratory, the hum of computers and the faint beep of analytics software running in the background took on an ominous tone. Simon brushed a stray lock of hair from his forehead and squinted at Alicia's screen. He took a sharp breath, the color draining from his face. The data spike was there, glaring back at them, defying every principle they knew. They exchanged glances filled with excitement and worry. Rare anomalies often heralded new physics, but also came with the risk of misinterpretation. Alicia and Simon analyzed the data meticulously. The anomaly had occurred at precisely 3 hours 17 minutes and 42 seconds AM Coordinated Universal Time. The gravitational wave detectors, neutrino observatories, and even some of the quantum entanglement-based sensors all recorded a blip, each lasting exactly 2.4 seconds. That might seem short, but in cosmic terms it was an eternity, enough time to rule out typical microsecond quantum fluctuations. Meanwhile, the background cosmic rays spiked in lockstep, forming a near-perfect sinusoidal wave pattern. In astrophysical terms, coincidences of this magnitude rarely happened by chance. Could it be an artifact of correlated data pollution? Possibly. However, a quick cross-reference with an Earth-based cosmic ray station in Antarctica confirmed the same fleeting disturbance. The alignment of data from independent sources, each with different designs and detection methods, made the anomaly extremely compelling. The entire physics department hummed with speculation. Was this some extragalactic phenomenon? A burst from a neutron star collision that ended as swiftly as it began? Or was it something entirely new? Perhaps evidence of exotic physics that Einstein himself could never have imagined? A preliminary report capturing the fundamental parameters of the anomaly, location, duration, wave pattern, was circulated among the staff scientists. At first glance, it looked reminiscent of theoretical predictions for baby wormholes, ephemeral tunnels in space-time that might spontaneously appear and vanish on quantum scales. But baby wormholes were supposed to exist fleetingly at the Planck scale, not for a full 2.4 seconds, and definitely not on a scale large enough to register gravitational wave detectors. Alicia assembled a team to probe deeper. Simon joined her, along with 2 other researchers. Dr. Hiroko Matsuda, an experimental physicist specializing in quantum entanglement, and Dr. Luca Ferraro, an astrophysicist with an extraordinary sense for pattern recognition in cosmic data. The 4 scientists locked themselves in the Rutherford Feynman Institute's Advanced Analytics Lab. Walls of monitors flashed data sets from different observatories, cross-tabulated with curated references to known phenomena. None of the patterns matched standard astrophysical events. Instead, an emerging pattern began to form. Every time the anomaly was detected, it seemed to coincide with minuscule fluctuations in vacuum energy. At the quantum level, zero-point energy changes can hint at the presence of something akin to negative energy density, the kind needed to theoretically stabilize a traversable wormhole. The results were perplexing yet tantalizingly consistent. While rummaging through papers, Alicia found a dusty reference from the 1970s, penned by famed astrophysicist Kip Thorne, regarding traversable wormholes stabilized by exotic matter. Modern physics suggested that in order for a wormhole to remain open, or at least remain macroscopically large enough to detect, Exotic matter with negative mass energy would be required to counteract gravitational collapse. The concept was always hypothetical. No one had ever observed such exotic matter naturally. But the anomaly's synergy with the quantum vacuum fluctuations was beginning to resemble those exotic negative energy conditions. Simon, who thrived on such theoretical puzzles, proposed an even bolder concept. Perhaps the anomaly signified an Einstein-Rosen bridge spontaneously forming between our universe and a parallel universe. The mathematics behind parallel universes was typically relegated to the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, or certain high-level string theory models. But evidence for an actual physical gateway was a leap. If that was the case, why so brief? Why only 2.4 seconds? And if it was truly a wormhole, who or what might be on the other side? About a week later, at precisely 2 hours 56 minutes and 23 seconds AM UTC, the anomaly repeated, another 2.4-second spike, again with a near-perfect sinusoidal wave pattern. This time, Dr. Matsuda had set up an advanced quantum entanglement sensor that measured real-time changes in entangled photon pairs. Upon reviewing the data, she found a fleeting period of decoherence in the entangled photons, almost as if something had briefly severed or redirected the quantum link. The coincidence left the team speechless. The pattern repeated 3 more times over the following month. The entire scientific community at the institute was buzzing, yet no official announcement was made. Alicia and her team needed more evidence and a coherent explanation before going public. Half-baked announcements could ruin careers, so they worked around the clock, trying to anticipate the next event. Data suggested a periodicity of about 10 to 12 days, but the intervals varied by a few hours. Trying to predict the anomaly became a cat-and-mouse game with the cosmos. About 3 months into the research, the wormhole-like spikes started displaying minute modulations in their gravitational wave signatures, forming patterns too structured to be random cosmic noise. Luca, with his keen ability to find hidden signals, deciphered a pattern of pulses embedded within the spikes. These pulses were not accidental. Their spacing followed a prime number sequence that immediately suggested intelligence. Prime numbers have historically been considered a universal mathematical language, presumably recognizable by any sufficiently advanced civilization. "Are we looking at a cosmic handshake from an advanced civilization?" Simon mused aloud, eyes wide with a mixture of wonder and fear. Alicia felt her heart pound. If they were dealing with an intelligent signal, then everything changed. Protocol demanded immediate notification of international SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, committees. But the team held off for one more cycle, wanting first to confirm beyond a doubt. The day came when the Rutherford-Feynman team decided they had enough evidence. Alicia contacted Dr. Melanie Hirsch at the Global SETI Network, whose main facility was in the Atacama Desert, controlling some of the world's largest radio telescopes. Hirsch was initially skeptical, but the raw data spoke for itself. Within 24 hours, the Global SETI Network's high-gain radio telescopes pointed to the coordinates where the wormhole-like anomaly was believed to manifest. But there was a catch. A wormhole, if ephemeral, might not emit electromagnetic signals in any typical band. The prime number pulses were gravitational wave modulations, not radio pulses. Nonetheless, Hirsch's team scanned multiple frequencies in case of a correlated radio signal. For the next predicted window, they were ready. And indeed, at 3:10 AM UTC on the dot, give or take half a second, another spike occurred. Hirsch's telescopes captured a faint burst of radio waves at 1420 mH, incidentally the same frequency corresponding to the hydrogen line, often used in theoretical interstellar communication. The radio burst was as fleeting as the gravitational wave spike, but it left behind a curious interference pattern that Hirsch's team quickly recognized as quantum entangled wave signatures. The implications were enormous. Not only did these fleeting wormholes produce gravitational anomalies, they also emitted or modulated electromagnetic waves in a manner consistent with quantum entanglement phenomena. It was as if some intelligence on the other side was testing the waters, poking ephemeral holes in our reality to see how we might respond. Over late-night phone calls, Hirsch and Alicia hashed out a plan to send a return signal. Since the wormhole spikes appeared random within a small time window, they had to keep their transmission beam ready 24/7. They decided on a simple message, a sequence of prime numbers followed by the Earth-based universal constants, Planck's constant, the speed of light, and the gravitational constant, all encoded in binary. If the intelligence on the other side was truly advanced, they would understand. Weeks passed. The wormhole manifested 3 more times, each at unpredictable intervals, and each time the team beamed out their carefully crafted signal. Then, on a quiet Wednesday, everything changed. Alicia was in the lab, dozing slightly from too many consecutive 20-hour workdays, when an alarm blared. The sensors showed an incoming gravitational wave spike. Everyone rushed to their posts. This time, the wormhole lasted longer, nearly 5 full seconds. In those 5 seconds, Hersch's telescopes recorded an anomalous data burst at multiple electromagnetic frequencies. But more startlingly, the advanced quantum entanglement sensor that Matsuda had built showed a precipitous drop in decoherence, almost zero for a brief moment, as though the sensor had fully synchronized with something. Simon scrambled to interpret the data. The pattern in the gravitational wave had changed from prime numbers to something more complex. He recognized it. It was the exact sequence of universal constants they had sent out, repeated back to them. A day later, an even more bizarre event occurred, this time not just in the domain of invisible waves. A remote deep-sea observatory located at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, used primarily for neutrino detection, captured something on its undersea camera. At precisely the moment of another spike, the camera showed a swirling distortion in the water, as if space itself was rippling. For just under 2 seconds, the outlines of a shadowy figure appeared, hazy and incomplete. Then it vanished. The footage made its way to Alicia's inbox thanks to a colleague who knew her wormhole research. Could it be that these fleeting space-time distortions were not just forming in the vacuum of space but near Earth's surface? And if so, was this figure an entity from the other side? The idea of a parallel universe occupant physically breaching our world, even for a moment, shook the scientific team to the core. Alicia convened a high-level meeting with her core group, Simon, Matsuda, Ferraro, and a few visiting theoretical physicists. They hammered out a working hypothesis. The ephemeral wormhole might be an Einstein-Rosen bridge stabilized by short bursts of negative energy, perhaps artificially generated. Each opening was fleeting, as maintaining negative energy over extended durations was theoretically impossible without a massive energy input. The new data hinted that the entity or entities behind these openings possessed advanced knowledge of quantum mechanics and the structure of space-time. By artificially creating zones of negative energy density, they could momentarily hold open a wormhole from their reality to ours, slip some instrumentation, or perhaps a scouting entity, through, and then withdraw before the wormhole collapsed. This explained why the appearances seemed random and brief. A stable wormhole was extraordinarily costly to maintain, even for a technologically advanced civilization. As rumors spread within the scientific community, more strange sightings emerged. A security camera at a research station in the Arctic Circle recorded a bizarre ripple in the air and a faint outline of something shaped like a tall biped, gone in less than a second. Meanwhile, a farmer in rural India reported seeing a shimmering, translucent shape in his field one early morning. He thought it was a ghost until it disappeared. These sightings typically coincided with the gravitational wave anomalies the Rutherford-Feynman team tracked with their sensors. It became clear that these fleeting encounters were part of a systematic observation campaign by the other side. But to what end? Were these entities gathering information, or simply experimenting with the possibility of crossing the threshold between universes? The possibility that we were being observed, and maybe even studied, without any clear consent, began to weigh on Alicia. For the first time in her career, she felt a tinge of dread mixing with her scientific curiosity. The government eventually got wind of the anomalies. High-ranking officials from multiple agencies convened in a confidential video conference with Alicia's team, demanding an explanation. The Rutherford-Feynman Institute found itself at the center of a swirling vortex of secrecy and speculation. Homeland security agencies worried about potential threats. Others were enthralled by the technology. If these beings could manipulate wormholes, imagine the military or energy implications. Alicia, pressed by the tension in the meeting, insisted on a rational approach. "We've detected no signs of hostility," she said firmly, her voice reverberating through the conference room. "They seem only to be gathering information. However, the technology involved is far beyond our capabilities. If they meant harm, I believe they could have done something drastic by now. Instead, they appear curious." The officials exchanged uneasy glances. "Curiosity is not always benevolent," one of them countered. Weeks later, the unexpected happened. During the next predicted wormhole manifestation, the gravitational wave pattern arrived punctually. Matsuda's sensor registered minimal decoherence. Then, on a screen that was monitoring fluctuations in local ambient electromagnetic fields, a string of visual data appeared, like a fractal pattern flickering in code. Alarmed but fascinated, Simon scrambled to run the fractal pattern through a decryption algorithm, suspecting it might be a direct message. It took hours of computing, but eventually they recognized an intelligible sequence of symbols. The message, interpreted in a symbolic universal language akin to mathematics, read, "We greet you, we observe, desiring knowledge, exchange possible." Alicia felt her heart pound so fiercely she worried it would burst. They had just received direct communication from what appeared to be an intelligence beyond our universe. After days of consultation, the team crafted a cautious reply. "We greet you. We welcome peaceful exchange of knowledge. Who are you? Where do you come from?" They embedded this response in a similar fractal pattern, broadcast via their specialized quantum entanglement-based transmitter. The tension was palpable. Every day they checked for the next wormhole spike, unsure if they'd get a reply or if they might suddenly discover a more ominous presence. Meanwhile, rumors were flying in the corridors of power, and Alicia had to tread carefully. Government agencies demanded she share all raw data. She did, albeit selectively, concerned about how the information might be used. That fear only deepened when a military scientist pulled her aside and asked if these beings could be harnessed for strategic advantage. Alicia's stomach turned. She had devoted her life to the pursuit of knowledge, not warfare. Nearly 2 weeks passed before another wormhole spike arrived, this one stronger and lasting almost 7 seconds. The fractal pattern reappeared on their screens, and it was more extensive than before. Decoding took a full day. The gist was, we are from approximate reality. We have developed the capacity to manipulate quantum-scale structures of space-time for short durations. We are an exploratory collective. We study universes parallel to ours to expand mutual understanding. Simon gasped at one line in particular. "We remain physically ephemeral in your domain because of instability. Full crossing is not feasible for extended periods, but knowledge can be shared." He read it aloud. It was as if they were pen pals with a civilization advanced enough to shape space-time and yet cautious, or perhaps unable to remain here for long. The potential for scientific leaps was mind-boggling. Quantum gravity unification, advanced energy manipulation, even new branches of mathematics. During this contact, the fractal code also conveyed a partial blueprint of their method, just a glimpse, showing how they used exotic quantum states to induce negative energy densities. Essentially, they modulated vacuum energies around subatomic black holes to create momentary tunnels between the two universes. The mathematics was unbelievably complex, melding general relativity with quantum field theory in ways Earth scientists had only begun to guess. Alicia's team pored over the blueprint. Each revelation prompted new questions. How did these visitors circumvent the cosmic censorship conjecture which posits that singularities cannot be exposed to the outside universe? Did they harness quantum entanglement in ways that effectively wove space and time together at the Planck scale? Could this technology eventually be replicated on Earth, and if so, at what cost in terms of energy? The repeated localized wormhole appearances started happening at different points on Earth, from the edges of the Sahara to the Australian outback, from the Brazilian rainforest to the outskirts of Moscow. Cameras sometimes caught fleeting, almost intangible silhouettes. The sightings were no longer limited to scientific outposts. Everyday people were starting to catch glimpses of swirling anomalies, though few recognized what they were. In chat rooms and social media threads, speculation about ghosts, time travelers, or new stealth technology exploded. Governments scrambled to contain the rumors, labeling them hoaxes or illusions, yet the scientists knew better. The parallel universe visitors seemed to be expanding their observational reach, perhaps to sample different ecosystems, climates, cultures. A hush fell over the academic community as they realized Earth had, for all intents and purposes, become a cosmic laboratory. Nervous that their control over information was slipping, the top brass in multiple governments demanded more direct involvement. They wanted to invite the visitors to show themselves openly, to prove their intention. Alicia argued that pushing for open contact might be premature and could provoke the beings to seal the wormholes entirely, or worse. But the powers that be insisted. If these visitors were truly peaceful, they would have nothing to hide. A tense standoff followed. Alicia found herself caught between the desire to protect the integrity of this extraordinary scientific discovery and the harsh political pressures demanding tangible results. She feared that an aggressive stance might lead to conflict. The visitors had described themselves as explorers, not conquerors, but who could say for sure? She lost sleep over the possibility that humanity's fear and aggression could sabotage a once-in-a-lifetime chance at interdimensional contact. A coded message arrived unexpectedly in the fractal transmissions. It read, "Your governance demands knowledge we cannot fully divulge. Such knowledge can be misused. The wormhole will no longer be stable for repeated crossings if threatened. We limit ourselves for mutual safety." The subtext was clear. The visitors did not want to provide humanity with technology that could be weaponized. They recognized the risk. Alicia privately relayed this message to the appropriate officials, who grew frustrated. Some insisted it was a bluff, others worried about a catastrophic breakdown in communication. Tensions mounted to a fever pitch. Meanwhile, the wormholes kept appearing, albeit less frequently, each time for a shorter duration. The visitors seemed wary, as if their trust had been eroded. Believing time was running out, Alicia and her core team devised a plan. They would attempt a real-time conversation during the next spike, something more instantaneous than sending coded fractal patterns and waiting hours or days. Matsuda had refined the quantum entanglement sensor into a device capable of near-instant data exchange. Once the wormhole opened, they could theoretically hold a short back and forth with minimal delay. At long last, the moment arrived. The gravitational wave detectors sounded their alerts. A swirling distortion materialized in the sensor's visual feed, just meters away from the instrument array. The fractal code flared on the screen. Matsuda initiated the real-time link. Alicia and Simon typed short questions, receiving near-immediate responses in a series of flickering fractal patterns. It was the closest thing to an interdimensional chat room. Alicia asked, "Why do you visit multiple locations?" Response, "Your planet is diverse. We sample culture, biology, environment, seek to learn how universal laws converge and diverge." Simon typed, "Will you ever reveal yourselves openly?" The reply took an extra second. "Open revelation is dangerous. Our forms differ, and prolonged presence destabilizes the field. Curiosity does not imply readiness for direct contact." Alicia pressed for more. "Some of our leaders want your technology. They fear your intentions." A brief pause ensued. Then, "We do not share full technology to avoid misuse. We come in peace, but caution is required." Midway through this ephemeral chat, sirens began to wail throughout the Rutherford Feynman Institute. A covert military unit, likely acting on government orders, launched an electromagnetic pulse from an undisclosed location, aimed at the distortion in an attempt to force the wormhole fully open, or knock it closed. The building's electronics flickered. The quantum sensor spat out errors. The swirling distortion on the screen intensified into a violent burst of light, as if space itself was being torn. Alicia screamed, "Shut it down! Shut everything down!" But it was too late. The artificial jolt had destabilized the wormhole. It collapsed in a blaze of fractal patterns that overloaded the sensors, leaving behind scorched cables and a fizzled telemetry system. Just like that, the contact was severed. The lab's ventilation systems whirred in the ensuing silence, thick with the smell of overheated circuitry. In the aftermath, the gravitational wave detectors fell silent. Days went by with no sign of another wormhole spike. Simon ran multiple sweeps across the cosmic data feed. Nothing. Hersch's telescopes detected no more radio bursts. The quantum entanglement sensor showed only baseline decoherence patterns. It was as if the visitors, spooked by the human attempt to manipulate or capture them, decided to retreat. Government agencies quietly disbanded their immediate teams and labeled the entire affair classified. Some scientists were reassigned to unrelated projects. Funding for Alicia's research dried up. Officially, the anomalies were explained away as experimental noise and illusions. Unofficially, most suspected the visitors had chosen to cut ties and perhaps sealed the bridge for good. Alicia was left with no recourse but to continue her work in the shadows, hoping to re-establish contact if ever the wormholes resumed. Months later, Alicia was packing her office, preparing to leave the institute. She felt hollow, as though she had lost her life's greatest opportunity. That was when she noticed a faint blinking on her personal computer. The quantum entanglement sensor, though officially disconnected, was still powering a hidden subroutine. She clicked on it and her jaw dropped. A fresh set of fractal patterns scrolled across the screen in mesmerizing waves. The wormhole had opened again, covertly, so briefly that the official sensors missed it. The fractal code was condensed, urgent. We remain, observing quietly. Not all is lost. We leave you with knowledge you seek. Attached was a compressed stream of mathematical data, an advanced treatise on quantum relativistic bridging, blueprints for ephemeral wormholes far beyond anything Earth science had. And then, at the very end of the message, we watch from shadows. We do not vanish forever. As quickly as it appeared, the link went dead. Alicia's eyes brimmed with tears. The visitors were still there, forging a clandestine line of communication. Perhaps they saw something in humanity worth saving. Or maybe they planned to monitor us until we matured enough to handle such power responsibly. Whatever their motive, one thing was clear. The story was far from over. Clutching the data, Alicia realized the visitors had left a puzzle behind, one that might take decades to unravel. She sat down in stunned silence, trying to process the enormity of the moment. In the quiet, she found a new sense of hope. The knowledge that they do not vanish forever both thrilled and unnerved her. She thought of the centuries of science yet to come, how their entire understanding of reality could be rewritten. Outside her office window, the late afternoon sun gleamed on the Rutherford Feynman Institute's gleaming towers. She imagined a future generation of physicists deciphering the blueprint, forging new alliances between universes. Perhaps, in the end, these parallel beings had given humanity just enough rope to pull itself forward or, if misused, to hang itself. It was a gift fraught with peril and promise. Alicia tucked the data into a secure drive, walked out of the institute and looked skyward. There were no swirling distortions, no shimmering outlines, but she knew they were out there, just a quantum breath away, waiting in the spaces between intervals of time. And the knowledge that they could, and likely would, return at any moment left her both exhilarated and haunted. The wormholes had not ended, they had merely slipped beneath the threshold of human detection. In a single fleeting instant, everything had changed, and yet the world still looked the same. That was the true mystery, the intangible closeness of a universe next door, lurking behind the veil of quantum foam, waiting for us to discover that the boundaries of reality were never as fixed as we imagined. The next time the distortion appeared, humanity might be ready, or we might not be. But the puzzle lay before us now, whether we asked for it or not.